welcome to Dysfictional, an RPG-focused podcast where I can't think of anything interesting to say like, wait, why am I getting deja vu?
I'm Randy, and I can do whatever I want.
And I'm Ginger, a professional film industry victim. Are you guys okay?
Wait, I'm Tukey, former academic on Ranger, right?
I thought so.
Huh.
The random generator.
What? Oh, no.
Randy, are you throwing around modify memory spells again?
Who are you?
Dang it.
Oh, he did it on himself, too. It's like the perfect crime.
I twin spelled it.
The perfect.
Well, we got our thoughts all over the place, but let's get into some weapon mastery.
Cling, clang. I'm sorry, go on.
Something new that
Chia-ching.
is going to be... Oh, goodness. You broke Ginger.
Tukey, continue. Come on, it's supposed to be serious.
I forgot exactly where I was.
Tukey was telling us about being the master of his weapons.
Ooh.
So weapon mastery is something new added in to 5e24, whatever it's called.
I like that.
Randy, is it called 5e20? Yeah, we'll go with that one.
No, I mean, it's officially called 2024 Player's Handbook, but that's a lot to say. So people are trying to do 5e24 to make it backwards compatible, and just because it's easier to say. Anyway, continue.
Perfect. Well, weapon mastery is one of those things that's added in, and it definitely gives players a little extra combat skills, I guess, so to speak. Something else to do while fighting. And we'll get into the specifics each specific one in a little bit, but I figured we'd just start with some generalities with it. So, who can do it, how many you get, how you get them back, before we get into it. The classes that can do it looks like Barbarian, Fighter, Paladin, Ranger, and Rogue seem to be the ones who will have access to it. And they can do it with simple and martial weapons, sort of depending on their, and some just, based on their proficiencies. But yeah, any general thoughts about what it is, how it works from you two?
I think it adds a little bit of a flair to just kind of what you were already doing in combat. Honestly, they kind of create new opportunities. We'll get into more of that later, but like rogues theoretically can save up their bonus actions to be able to do those fun flavors that rogues are really good at with the cunning actions. So pretty excited about that.
I think it seems fun that they are kind of unlimited. It seems like you could do it once per turn.
Yeah.
And you can even change the type of mastery that you have on a long rest, which didn't strictly make sense because it said you could spend some of your long rest practicing weapons forms and then change it. And I was like, but you're supposed to be resting. But, whatever. It's nice that you could change it from one weapon to the other. If you decide, you find that perfect great sword at that rummage sale and you want to change your weapon over, it's nice that you're not locked into mastery of only like your dagger from early campaign.
Especially when you find the cool fire sword.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, it seems really fun. It adds a little versatility and, like you said, new flavor options to the combat. It makes you think a little bit more about your moves, right? What they look like, what they're actually doing, because it gives you more things to specifically aim at your opponent. So yeah, it seems like it could be a really fun thing to branch into a martial class with.
Well, the nice thing is too, is it also feels relatively balanced, right? I mean, like you said, you can use it as many times as you want before a short or long rest, but it can only be used once per turn. And then from a class perspective, rogues, rangers, paladins, they can only have access to 2 at a time, where I think barbarians and fighters start with 2 or 3, but then can get more as they level on. And so that's kind of cool too. There's some differences between classes, but it is limited there, right? It's not like everyone can just be a master of every weapon and, at one time anyway. Like you're saying, you can switch, which I do think was a good choice on their part. This way you don't punish someone for becoming a master of a debt with a dagger and then, they get a sword later and they can't master it or something like that. But yeah, it seems relatively balanced. And we'll get into each of the different ones in a little bit here, but they're not super overpowered, but they're definitely fun, to say the least.
Fighters get the most. They're capped at 3.
Mm-hmm.
I know that later features, I think it's level 9, they actually gain the ability to have push, sap, and slow on any weapon that they have a mastery with, which is a neat feature to basically have, let's say, 4 weapon masters on that one. But I don't think anyone gains more than 3. Unless like that specific kind of feature where, they can add it to specific ones to specific scenarios. That's kind of a different thing because it's an additional feature, but they don't get to like pick which one, like a 4th one or something.
Okay. Yeah, this is definitely one that I'm looking forward to using in a campaign to really get like familiar with it and see how I use it as well.
It's also one that I'm really not looking forward to having used against me in a campaign.
No. It's just the players can use this, right, Randy?
Oh.
I mean, honestly, I probably wouldn't have that as a monster thing unless it's a very, like, let's say a specific martial monster or something.
Well, but if you had an NPC, that was a fighter or whatever, that was a bad guy, I would expect them to have it.
So something with a lot of NPCs, they already have something, lack of a better word, like this in there. Like, let's just give an example with like a lance that does damage and then it does radiant. And if you fail to save from the attack, then it also makes you like poisoned or something. So that's kind of what they already have. And if you always wanted something else to do with their weapons, you could just do that. So weapon mastery isn't as needed for the DM because they could already just add something like that. Though I will say it is a good guideline where a lot of these are guarantees, which is kind of crazy. It's like if you hit the enemy, now they have disadvantage. And hey, there you go. So it could be a good guideline to add into their own thing. So maybe a little bit hybrid.
Makes sense that enemy-wise, they already have potentially other options that they wouldn't necessarily need this or not.
Yeah.
I definitely think, again, for players, it really puts a lot more purpose or more emphasis on choosing your weapons as well. Not just getting that new shiny thing, but, maybe your playstyle really is suited by one versus another, and taking a new weapon that's a +1 would actually sort of hurt your combat style. I think there's going to be a lot of choices like that are going to come up, which will be pretty interesting. Why don't we actually get into them then? So why don't we start off with Cleave? That's the first one here.
Cleave.
What kind of weapons do cleave?
Big choppy ones.
I think Great Axe
The chopper
was an example. And it's if you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you can make a second attack against a creature within 5 feet that is also within your reach. Oh, and when you hit with the second attack, you can roll your weapon's damage, but you don't add your ability modifier unless it's negative.
Yeah, I think cleave will be a really interesting option for those because even when you miss, you can still potentially hit another creature.
This does say if you hit with the attack, you can make a second attack against another creature. I don't think it works if you miss.
I'm looking at the wrong one then. Okay. I'm looking at Grays. My bad.
You know what it is? It's the memory wiping spell still.
It is. Let me.
Randy, stop experimenting on yourself.
What do you think about Cleave then, Randy?
I like the idea of Cleave that you could potentially make a second attack on someone because it gives like a multi-hit to someone that could potentially only hit one target at a time. Gives a little more damage out. Not quite AoE, of course, but when you're up against, say, even 4 or less enemies and even just 2 of them on you, dealing damage to both and slowly killing both of them is great. Especially when you're trying to hit the big bad, but his minions are on you, but you don't want to spend an entire attack to one-shot a minion. because usually you like waste a lot of damage with that one hit because they only have like 2 HP. So being able to cleave and like one shot the minions like every time you're cleaving around is really kind of funny actually to watch.
It also makes sense, right? Because you think about great swords and like great axes, anything with a great in front of it, really. Like, how controllable is that really in a super up close melee scenario? If you're swinging that thing at a full arc, you're not going to be able to stop it on a dime. So, even just by physics, it makes sense that it could potentially like go through the first person and hit something else. It would be interesting if it kicks in regardless of who's next to you. If it could also be like friendly fire damage as well. And you have to roll like athletics or something to stop it in time, like to cancel a cleave. That would be an interesting sort of like homebrew rule for it.
I mean, it is specifically against a creature. It's not necessarily an enemy. I mean, actually, any attack can be on any creature. So you could actually just choose to be the detriment of the party as well. But and at least in the way that they have it, it'll almost, depending on the roll itself, it'll almost never do more damage than the main attack, which makes sense because you're hitting something. And then as it's like the momentum of it has dissipated, then you kind of just nick another thing. No pun intended with,
next thing.
the one later.
No, we didn't get to that one yet.
I know.
I like it. I mean, it's not that dramatically overpowered until obviously people figure out exactly how to make it overpowered, but it's a nice way, especially if someone has multiple enemies. Before you would have that one big hit, maybe now you just have another way to spread the damage around a little bit. Even if it's not as much, like you're saying, it might not be as big as that first hit. It's still something, and it's still kind of a nice way to give a, in this case, probably a melee style character with like a great axe or something, a way to spread their damage around.
And it's free damage anyway.
Every little bit counts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's free. You could use it on, maybe you could be really strategic, hit the big enemy with the first hit, and then there's a little guy next to it or something, and that's what you use the cleave for. So
yeah,
definitely interesting.
Or you could graze them.
Whoa, wait, that's the next one I was going to bring up.
Graze is what horses like to do.
It's also what you can do with a great sword.
What?
Yep.
That's the one where even if you miss, you can still deal damage with your modifier, which, I mean, that's still going to be like up to 5 damage, which, okay, I'm cool with that. Considering there are spells that even if they succeed on the save, they still take half damage. Kind of the equivalent of that.
This is crazy too, because it makes a specific point to say it pairs well with subclasses that let you make a lot of attacks. So if you think about it, if you are a fighter and you have an action surge and you've got attack, bonus action surge, and you attack 3 more times, that's 6 times that you can miss and still do damage in a row. I guess they do say that they're mostly once a turn, but this one says if you miss with a weapon. It doesn't say once. Do you think it's once or do you think it's every time?
I think weapon masteries in general are an every turn thing. Like all of them are. So they don't say that for each because it's just a blanket rule.
Yeah. You can only activate it basically the one time.
Yeah, you'd get at least like 1 hit in on one of those like dropped turns.
Because, yeah, like you said, that'd be kind of crazy to do 6 attacks and you're still doing like, well, I still did 30 damage even though I missed every time, which is cool because that's a lot of damage you didn't do as well. So there's that. But even being able to do it once is great because no matter what, you still did something.
I just like the difference between these first two. So, cleave, you have to hit in order to activate it versus this one, you have to miss. So each one, you could technically have a round where you can't use it, but it's just a totally opposite problem. It's like, man, I'm hitting too much, I can't graze, or man, I'm missing too much, I can't cleave. So I think that's kind of a funny difference between the two. And honestly, from a flavor wise, I just like the idea with graze that you're swinging around a sword that's so long that the enemy can kind of dodge out of the way, or maybe you're not that great hitting with it, but it's just so long that you still kind of graze them a little bit.
Now, one of the things, I'll bring up the second point when we talk about some of the other ones. Some of the things that people were talking about that this has promoted, I think specifically Graze and Cleave are great together, is weapon swapping. Because with the new rules, you can swap a weapon as part of your attack, and it could be before or after the attack, and you don't have to use that weapon for that attack. So you could attack, stow away a weapon as part of that attack, pull out a new weapon, attack with that weapon as like a second attack. So you could, like, so let's say Ginger as the example, you could get your Graze in, bring it back, and then cleave on the second attack. Now that's pretty neat.
So if you have separate masteries, you can use them each once
Correct.
in the same turn?
Correct.
Oh.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was just one weapon mastery per turn.
That's a big reason why dual wielding has now become quite a popular thing, because as the next one, I'll actually bring it up, Nick as being one of the new properties. One of the best examples is with a dagger. So with the dual wielding daggers, you can attack a second time if you have Nick on it. So as a part of your action, instead of using the light weapon as the bonus action, so then what you would do is you'd hit them again, stow away one of the weapons, bring out another weapon, then you could nick them again, and then do like your bonus action and attack with the other weapon. You basically create like 2 extra attacks. It's kind of crazy. I don't know if they fully intend this, but it is a really neat idea to try to do. I think Diablo 4 is a great example with with that current barbarian, is they are a weapon swapper. So they'll have an attack that does dual weapon slicing, then they'll do a great hammer, and then they'll do a great sword. And I think that this brings out that fantasy power. Yeah, I just blew both of your worlds.
I'm stunned.
Yeah.
I'm totally stunned.
This is the rule reader guy here.
The extra flavor here too, the fact that, you know, Nick is now specifically light weapons, I mean, totally makes sense, right? Like if someone is thinking combat style wise, like you hit it with the one, you bring over the other one, like it makes total sense with the style of holding a light weapon and dual wielding in particular, which, like you said, I mean, it's good to see it getting some love now, because I kind of feel like dual wielding for the longest time was not utilized super well. I actually did utilize it quite a bit in our third campaign, because I used to use it as a way to spread. I think I could sneak attack on one, my main attack, but then I might psychic blades on another. So I kind of used it as that way, but it's really nice to see it getting some love, the actual dual wielding here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just now putting it together that I get weapon mastery in our current campaign, and I need to go in and figure out what that means exactly, because I am a dual wielder.
Oh,
Ha.
And so do you.
maybe.
You're a ranger.
Am I?
You said you were.
Yeah, you literally said gone ranger.
Who are you guys?
Are you not? Oh.
Randy, told you to aim that spell somewhere else.
It's a pulse. He walked into it.
Tukey.
Oh no, he was pushed into it with my great club.
How dare you?
Yeah, push. Great club is an example with it. Push allows you to launch a creature you hit 10 feet straight away from you without a save.
Yep.
So you kind of hinted at this before, but the fact that so many of these just happen is kind of crazy, but at the same point, really nice with preparation wise. You can use this in your planning. Of course, you know, this one now, unlike Graze, you do have to hit. So you have to hit the enemy, but at least you can prepare for it. It's an awesome way to, again, to kind of enhance your fighting style, enhance the planning and preparation goes into a turn. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I think I would have been screwed if if that was something you would have used against us in that lava fight we had last campaign.
Right? I mean, I wish I could have. Going past like the min-maxing of like trying to optimize your damage and the weapon stuff, I actually like the idea that, let's say you're in the middle of a fight, you've been cleaving the whole time, but then someone brought up a like spiked growth or something, and you're like, oh yeah, and then you bring out the great club and then you just push them into it. the tactics that you could create with something like push is something I think fighters are missing. Now, theoretically, you could be some sort of like a support, not a full support, but you could be kind of a support fighter now, or some sort of martial character where you are pushing, or some of the other examples later on, because a lot of those are more of the debuffs on enemies, or grapples that we're not talking about right now, but things like that actually create a lot more opportunities outside of just I'm the one who does damage.
It's also a fun way to be more involved with combos with your casters too, right? Like if I put up a wall of flame,
yeah,
and Barbarian can push people, just toss people into the wall every time it hits on a turn with no save, that'd be amazing. If somebody puts up, Blade Wall or Wind Shear or any kind of area effect, if somebody gets out of an area effect bubble, you could shove them right back in. So it's also a good way to just sort of combo with the rest of your party and their specific skills instead of just trying to run around and whack things in place and not really be able to have that much mobility.
Or sap them.
Whoa, hold on.
Delicious.
You've pushed right into the next one.
Oh,
I've stolen your memories, I think.
So sap,
give them back.
that can be used with a mace. When you hit an enemy with an attack, it inflicts disadvantage on your target's next attack roll before the start of your turn.
They'd be really good for a single one big hitters because it's not necessarily to you. And I'm going to go back with a fighter example. Fighters could theoretically add that to like a range weapon because it goes with any weapon that they have weapon mastery on after level 9. So they could do that with like a longbow and then disadvantage on the target's next attack. Then if they're trying to hit the barbarian in front of them, now, oh, look, that one had disadvantage. You're kind of almost supporting again with sap, which is really fun addition.
That's nice to level the playing field too in certain situations. Like if your barbarian is going reckless,
yeah,
you have advantage, then disadvantage cancel, and then it's just a normal fair fight.
Yeah. Or you are the barbarian applying the sap so that you can reckless.
Again, it's another one that's you can really play around with how you utilize it, but you can use it for yourself, like you're mentioning. You could even use it to protect somebody else. I could also see somebody, say, is a little bit on the lighter armor side, right? Maybe, but they want to one get up, stay in melee. Maybe they have a little bit squishier. This could allow them to do that now, kind of one-on-one somebody, because they can inflict disadvantage and not have to worry as much about the next turn attack that they're going to take. So yeah, I think it definitely can be used both by, more brutish characters and probably even more lighter, faster, little squishier characters.
And this is one of the only ones, I think there's 2 or 3 of them, but this is one of those that don't stack with other saps. So having it on multiple people for the same target it kind of wastes it, unfortunately. But again, that's where you can weapon swap really easily. So at least that's not that much of a problem.
Randy, I think you need to slow down.
Oh, is that the next one?
It sure is. So next one. Okay, he fell asleep. Next one is slow. I think one example weapon you can use it with is a light. Oh, he's up. Good. Perfect. Is a light crossbow. And when you hit a creature and deal damage, you can reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn.
And unfortunately, this one is one of those that don't stack. But the ability to slow them by 10 feet, if you're even like 50 feet away and you apply this slow, even if they dash, they can't reach you at that point. So you could theoretically be at 60 feet and it would take them like 3 turns to reach, at least 2 turns to reach you, even if they dash and you use your full movement to further get away from them. Ah, man, that sounds so annoying, but it's with ranged weapons too. Like, what?
I just like the fact that it's beneficial for both slow and fast characters. right? Like if you're fast and you use it on someone, it just makes you be able to get that much further away from them or around them in some kind of strategic situation. Alternatively, if you're really slow, it
allows them catch up.
allows you to catch up to somebody who might be a little bit faster. So
Yeah.
it really works kind of both ways there. And as well, just like what we were talking about for Sap, it's something that could be beneficial to you. Maybe you're slowing someone so they can't get to you, or maybe you're slowing someone who's about to chase after a low health party member, right? So
A common start for a lot of marshals, especially if they're not ripe in their face, they'll often run in and do their one crossbow shot because they're never going to reload it during the fight. So they get that one off and then they just kind of go from there. But if they get that one off and it hits and then they slowed them, it's like, oh, hey, now I can gonna be able to catch up to you. So that actually hidden creates that opportunity. Maybe they don't want to waste like a weapon mastery on it, but at the very least, fighters could do it because they've got that 3. But it's still an option that people can invite to the table if they just want to have that really one cool weapon and then a flavor weapon mastery.
I'm thinking of several times it would have come in handy for creatures that are trying to flee. I feel like that's probably where I would use it the most.
Good luck getting away from that. You're more likely to topple them at that point too.
Topple? What does that do?
Well, this is one of the few that they actually are able to make a Constitution saving throw, but if they fail it, they fall prone, which actually kind of has a double edge because when you're prone, range has disadvantage on attacks against prone targets and melee have advantage on prone targets. So once they knock them down with their first attack, they could just start hitting them like crazy with advantage, and then everyone else starts beating on them too, especially if they don't get up before the other marshals get to hit on it. Like, kick him while he's down.
You kind of just said it. This is definitely one you have to be careful with strategically. A ranged might get disadvantage on it, so you can knock him down. Now you're hitting him really hard, but if the entire rest of your party is ranged, you might want to consider when you do it.
Or just use saving throws. Casters.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Don't look at me.
It did feel like he was looking at you.
But
It did feel like he was looking at me. I know we're recording in 3 different states, but it felt like he was looking at me.
But you're a ranger.
I am part ranger, yes.
I see you.
Creepy. It is interesting that this one has a DC though. Because none of the other ones do. It's the only one that essentially has a DC. So it's an interesting choice to give it. But it kind of makes sense because knocking someone prone is pretty big, potentially.
Yeah.
It would be better if it had a marvel.
Because, I mean, you get pretty much every attack while they're prone with advantage, and then they still have to spend 15 feet of their movement to get up. So it does more than slow, and it does more than the last one combined. The only downside is it does have a more of a detriment to other party members potentially. But if, let's say, you're a party of barbarians, topple's your best friend because kick him while he's down.
I feel like getting kicked while you were down would be very vexing.
No, what's vexing is I just don't know how to transition to this last one.
Vex
Oh,
is the final weapon mastery.
what does it do?
When you hit a creature and you deal damage to the creature, it gives you advantage on your next attack roll before the end of your turn.
I would have loved this on my rogue last campaign.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. So Nick and Vex are currently the rogues' theoretical best friends right now. More opportunities for attacks, more opportunities to sneak attack. Vex, of course, like you said, pretty much guaranteeing that sneak attack, which is great. And it's up until your next turn. So even if you don't get that next attack during your turn to do it, you can still opportunity attacks, and that's at an advantage as well.
Yeah, this one's really good. I mean, I just am thinking more and more of just ways to make the most use out of it. This one, though, is obviously very selfish, I think, compared to a lot of the other ones. Not saying selfish in a super negative way.
Some of them are, yeah. Some of them just do the damage or extra attacks.
Exactly. This is definitely one of those. This, the last several we were talking about can be, more beneficial to a group. This one clearly is obviously useful to that person in particular because they're the one getting the advantage, which makes sense.
The unique thing about this one is this is one of the few ones that you can set up because it's until the end of your next turn. So you could Vex at basically the end of your turn. And then on your next turn, you have that advantage on your first attack. So even then.
And then you can also use that attack you had advantage on to Vex again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could do that where you basically have now a double advantage. Let's say you could attack 3 times, you'd have a double advantage, especially even applying like Nick and things like that. So that's a nice little additive to create some sort of creativity into your character and make you think more than just, I'm just going to hit it with the stick all the time, forever.
Okay, I feel like you're looking at me again.
It definitely is.
You do have a stick, don't you?
I do have a stick.
All right. Maybe I am looking at you.
Well, I don't know. All these different ways to fight is making me want to fight something now. Time for some Dissectional, a segment where we discuss D&D monsters using facts and questions no one asked for. On the menu tonight is the Gelatinous Cube. We have one right in front of us. If you don't see it, you gotta kind of wiggle your eyes back and forth a little bit. But you see that haze in the air? That clear viscosity of the ooze makes this jolly jelly the perfect ambush predator. Don't be fooled by its perfect shape. It can reach out with its pseudopod to grab its prey. It will eat just about anything it runs into, and that acid damage stings. And I wanted to start off with its environment. I feel like we've run into this one quite a few times in our various campaigns. A lot of times they're hanging around dungeons.
And dragons.
Pretty dry environments. But I like to think that they could live in other places. Maybe if they were in a more humid place or a warmer place, maybe they'd wiggle a little differently. Well, that's what I like to think anyway.
I think in my campaign, the first Gelatinous Cube I ever brought into a campaign was a part of the sewage system, and it actually cleaned the water as it left into, like, basically, dumping out pretty much.
Yeah, we found that one. That one hurt.
It only hurt someone because they saw the shiny and was like, oh, I'm going to grab that thing. And then they found out why it was just sitting in there. Luckily, it was clean sewage because it was cleaning it.
If your treasure is floating in what seems to be midair, but the environment around you is humid, maybe think twice before reaching in there.
Yeah, it's just always so tempting. They definitely are around. We kind of mentioned this. We're around a lot of dungeon areas. They kind of fit through the little tight corridors. Maybe not so tight, but they fit around the corridors. And I think this one's kind of a funny one, but it would be interesting to see a desert Gelatinous Cube just kind of be filled with sand. I don't know. I think that'd be kind of funny.
Or where it's like almost dried up, it looks like that it's not surviving well. So it's like maybe even more violent because it needs to feast on more creatures to bring kind of back to life because it is a very wet, moist creature.
Freeze-dried Gelatinous Cube.
Could be like when a jellyfish washes up on the beach and it gets hard on the outside, but it's still jelly on the inside.
Probably exactly that.
Poor little guy.
Gross.
Yeah.
I would say that probably wouldn't be the ideal environment for one of those wiggly boys.
Yeah, definitely not.
No matter what environment you encounter a Gelatinous Cube in, be prepared for a vicious ambush predator. While they might not be malicious due to their probable low intelligence score, they are definitely adept hunters. They lurk down corridors and they can reach out a pseudopod, as we said before, to snatch their prey. So don't think that just because it's walking the other direction doesn't mean it can't get you. And it is clear, so it is quite disguised in the air. If you walk into it, it will whelm you with its acid interior and try to melt your bones to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, even when it's not moving, you don't even realize it's there unless you do a good perception on it. So you could literally just walk out. Wait, why have I stopped? Ow! Why is it burning? Ow!
It also has blind sense, so it doesn't need eyes to see you.
It knows you're there.
It's actually interesting to think from a predator prey standpoint that the better a gelatinous cube is at eating things, the worse it becomes, because then it's easier to see it.
Yes.
So basically, the hungrier it becomes, the better it becomes at hunting, in a sense.
Eventually, it also kind of doubles as a mimic, right? If you think about it, because if it ingests enough things with magic armor and the armor just makes a pile on the bottom and things just keep walking into it, it's almost like a fake pile of loot that's actually a monster waiting to eat you, which is what a mimic is.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe they're distantly related.
I think a gelatinous cube would eat a mimic, though.
You might have to ask Jubilix about that or something.
Do you think the mimic would go into the cube to try to get the treasure and then the cube would eat the... Yeah, it's kind of an Ouroboros situation.
As far as what kind of construction this gelatinous cube has, I did more like theory than I care to admit, and went down a rabbit hole and came to the conclusion that it was right in front of me all along. It's probably the insides are made of stomach acid, so like a hydrochloric acid, with the outline layer of it that keeps it together just being an alkaline mucus, which is what is lining your stomach. Because otherwise, your stomach acid would eat right through your entire body. But it doesn't because it's got that mucus. So I feel like the gelatinous cube is exactly that, where it's a mucus layer with a stomach acid inside. And it even fits like the lore of it more because the bones stay in there longer. It might eventually dissolve, but like they probably excrete it by then I would just say like it just kind of leaves it behind, kind of like it does with some of like a mucus trail. But iron is heavily resistant to hydrochloric acid, so they would still be floating in there. Like it all kind of fits. I wonder if they thought of that.
I mean, I think you're right. I think that outer layer essentially keeps all the moisture in, and
the acid.
Yeah, the acid, then it's got to have something to increase the viscosity of it, right? Because it's not like just a pure liquid that you would just sink right to the bottom, but it kind of like, maybe it changes, right? Maybe it can even change over time. It feels like it would have something else in it as well to make it kind of trap things there, basically hang them, but at the same point not be so crazy, because you can still get your friends out of this if you work quick enough before they dissolve to it.
Yeah.
So you can still kind of move through it. It's not like super liquidy, but it's not super sludgy either.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting your friends out of it, what is the best way, Randy, that you would throw it at a party?
I did like the sewage one because I thought it was a really clever idea of almost not a good gelatinous cube, but a way to use it.
Well, they're unaligned. They're mindless ooze. They don't actually have evil intentions. They're just,
And really, they could have left it be, but they saw the shiny, so,
I'd put it in a trap. So when someone steps on the trap, it drops on them from above.
Splat.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got another way, Tugi, that you would try to kill the party?
Sandwich them between two of them.
Ooh, that's a good one.
3 corridors that meet in the middle. Party comes down one, and the other 2 just have gelatinous cubes slowly making their way towards them.
Based off of me finding out what it is, how I would counter a gelatinous cube was I would stick my hand in it that is full of like almost like a bomb of baking soda, which neutralizes hydrochloric acid, which would neutralize the cube because you're throwing a base at an acid, haha, chemistry. And then I can just walk right on through it. Unless it's really sticky, then, but I'd have time.
That seems like a very alchemist solution. Like maybe an alchemist-based character would think of that.
Yeah. Or an alchemist, maybe an herbalist or something. Definitely. Or a chef.
You're always thinking with your artificer brain.
Artificier, come on.
Artificier.
What about you, Ginger? How would you stop it?
How would I neutralize the cube? Well, when my mom was little,
she got attacked.
Her horror movie that she accidentally saw when she was too small to watch horror movies that scared her out of her mind, that frightens her to this day, that she still talks about, was the original The Blob. And I'm pretty sure that the way they get rid of that one in that movie is they like lock it in a freezer because it can't be killed, but it can be slowed.
So maybe you freeze it and then smash it.
Yeah, maybe like a ray of frost at a lower level or like an ice wall at a higher level, something that would maybe, change its consistency, make it easier to smash.
I actually kind of like more, instead of like having a spell, try to use the environment of it. And like you said, maybe throw it in some sort of like freezer or something instead. And kind of, instead of using a mechanic to try to fudge flavor and stuff, you just try to use the environment and go, well, this isn't in the rules. So how would you, and you kind of throw it in it's just like the baking soda. Because then it's like, I mean, it's logical. I get it, but what? Breaking brain.
I think with enough force, as far as how I might get around one, with enough force, I think you could propel yourself through it into the other side. It would probably require a lot of force.
Oh.
But, I mean, you got a strong enough barbarian to throw you through it. It might work.
If you were going fast enough to have the bubble, right? Like the Sonic, if you broke the sound barrier and you had like the Sonic bubble, the bubble would be like a shield as you went through the middle of the cube and came out the other side.
I mean, it just has to make a pretty decent deck save. And then it gets through too.
Yeah.
I don't know how that kind of works. For your example, I would just have you just do the strength save instead because it'd just be really funny. Maybe you still take some acid damage because you just literally brute force through it, but like, whatever. That was funny.
The real question no one's asking here is how did so many housewives in the 70s and 80s manage to capture so many of them and turn them into weird recipes for their families to eat?
See, I was about to say, we're talking about all these things of killing it, but like, can't we just eat it? I mean, it's got to taste pretty good. If you have acid resistance and immunity.
Do you think our next character would want to eat it?
This is the Flash Round, where we take turns creating the bones of a character that anyone can use. If you play one, let us know who they become. Roll initiative.
Oh, I rolled a 9.
Oh, I rolled a 15.
Yeah, I rolled a 7 for an 8.
How do you... Okay.
You see, you guys are so winning. Like,
I just feel like I don't have any bonuses here.
you should have put him in the stats. It said you wanted to get a feat, get observant or something like that.
Yeah, it helps me see how much I'm getting screwed over.
Yeah, it gave you a +1 to wisdom. You just had wisdom as your dump stat, whatever.
It is a dump stat. That's right. I said it.
I agree.
What?
All right. Got a good one for this, okay? For race, we're going to go Centaur.
Ooh, horsey
Yes.
lady, maybe.
Class for this centaur. All right. Got a good one here. I'm going to go with a ranger.
Yeah, so for race, I'm going to go for Fey Wanderer because I feel like that these centaurs are always just wandering around for something and they might as well be like Fey related.
You mean for subclass?
Yeah, for the subclass. Thank you.
I wonder why they wander.
I wander that all the time.
So if they're the Fey Wanderer, then their appearance should be a little bit more Fey-like. So I'm going to say that they're a dapple, like Appaloosa style horse, but they're not regular horse colors. Maybe they're like silver and blue or something.
Ooh.
And then they have really long silvery hair. And maybe they have a unicorn horn. Maybe it's real. Maybe it's not. No one knows.
Well, because of this look and because they like to wander, for their background, we're going to go folk hero because they get around a lot. People recognize them. Their achievements are known. They're revered.
And you know, for their personality traits, they're pretty optimistic and nothing can shake their optimistic attitude.
For ideals,
I'm going to say that their main ideal is loyalty. They always check back up on the people that they save.
Oh, see, this is why they're a folk hero.
Mm-hmm. Got to grow that rep somehow.
Well, this works well with their bonds. It just feels like this person's very bubbly. They're very kind. So their bond is that new people are just new friends.
Aw.
But to bring some tragedy.
Oh, no.
Oh.
I know. But their flaw is, for some reason, probably due to DM reasoning, they had to kill their family.
Wow. Well, that's a 180.
What?
Yeah.
That's so harsh.
Yep. Gotta add some tragedy to there. Makes them compelling.
So then their trinket is a mystical fae item that, while it is on their person, can suppress any single event memory they want.
Oh, man.
Like killing their family.
But the reason they're so happy is because they don't remember that.
Ooh, even better.
You know what? Still going to give them a fun name. They will be called Zugba. Zeugba.
All right, Zoogbud, please don't go into the anti-magic field so that trinket keeps you from the tragedies.
Why?
I'm sorry.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this session and want to hear more, you can find us on Twitter at DysfictionalPod for our latest updates and downloads.
Original music for this podcast is provided by Joshua Silver, the artist known as Dimanon on Spotify.
As we say goodbye for this week, remember the watch pot never boils. But that doesn't mean you can't scry on it.